Are you tired of wrangling too many vendors and tools just to keep your network running? Meter reimagines networking by delivering everything, hardware, software, support, in a single integrated stack. You get performance, control, and security without the complexity or wasted resources. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to meter.com/NAN to book a demo now. That's meter.com/NAN. Hello and welcome to the Network Automation Nerds podcast, where we explore the latest in network automation from a practitioner's perspective. I'm your host, Eric Cho, a network engineer who loves everything about network automation. Today's episode is for every network engineer who's been eyeing the world of network automation and DevOps, maybe with a little bit of excitement and perhaps with a bit of hesitation. We'll welcome David Henderson, principal architect for the NetDevOps practice at Presidio. David has been on the front lines of helping teams making the leap from manual CLI operations to agile, scalable, and sometimes scary new ways of managing networks with NetDevOps practices. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's get started. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric.
Yeah, it's, we touch base several times, and the topics always range from NetDevOps and evolving to AI and, just kind of even work-life balance, right? So we've actually talked quite a bit about different topics. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, David. Have you always been interested in technology, or were you one of these, kind of stumbled onto the field of IT and technology?
This is kind of a mix, a stumbling start. As a kid, I was interested in engineering and technology and taking things apart, tinkering, and I never had a remote control car that didn't end up in 20 different pieces because I wanted to see what was going on the inside.
Your parents might be happy about that. It's like, God, there's David again. We got to buy him a new car, or a toy car.
So I was always interested in those type of things. My dad was a computer analyst, and he did some programming, some things that I was a little bit interested in when he was working. He brought me into his office and showed me his data center a couple of times. So some cool interactions that I saw, but I kind of shied away from that as I got later into high school. And actually, out of high school, I decided I was going to be a martial arts instructor. I was like, I'm going to take a completely different leap here. I was doing martial arts since I was like 8. I loved it. I'm going to be an instructor. I'm going to be a professional fighter. I'm going to do these things. So yeah, I actually got into a couple bare knuckle tournaments and circuits. I did pretty poorly. After doing that for a little bit, I realized I needed a career change, and I went back to school. And they're like, what are you interested in? And I was talking to kind of the admissions to college, and I was like, I like computer stuff. And
besides beating people up, what are you interested in?
I was like, I like computer stuff. So, and they were like, well, we have this network management track you can do for your bachelor's degree. And I was like, I guess that sounds good. I really didn't know the difference in computing and networking at the time, And as I took the courses and got into like the IP and the TCP and all the traffic analysis and how everything worked, I just became fascinated with it and just fell in love with networking. And then from there on, I was just like all in on networking. It's all I wanted to do. I graduated like a week later. I went out and got my CCNA, and then I started right away. And I'm early in my career in a NOC, working as a tech. For an IAP and Broadview Networks as their tech engineers, kind of answering customer questions around firewall connectivity, router connectivity. We managed a few firewalls, so firewall rules, mostly add trans and PIX firewalls back then. some old stuff.
What is it? Oh, it's called Finesse, or remember when PIX firewall was had their own OS and they always been like clunky. And I think it's called Finesse, but I could be wrong. I mean, keep me honest. But sorry,
I don't remember the name. I don't remember the name of that OS. I remember when the ASA was transitioned to ASA, and all of a sudden all the syntax changed, and I had a small heart attack.
It's like all these knowledge of CLIs that are irrelevant nowadays. What the heck?
Yeah. And so and from there, I bounced around to different roles in IT. Early in my career, every year or two, I would bounce to a different thing. So I went from that tech position to actually a desktop position. Was like kind of like it was like a lateral move to a company to just kind of learn what else was out there. So I was doing desktop work for about a year. And then I transitioned to like a junior engineer, network engineer role at that same company. And I always kind of gravitated back towards network engineering. And from there, I took a big leap to project management, which was terrible. I didn't like project management. It didn't suit me. But it was technical project management. I was kind of doing AT&T data center builds. So I was like kind of overseeing the technical process of that. So I learned a lot in how those things work, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. I liked being more hands-on into it. And from there, I moved into an enterprise where I started off as their like level 2 kind of mid-level engineer, and then very quickly within like 2-3 years became like their senior engineer, and then their architect, their principal for everything network for the company. And that's really where I got most of my automation chops, was like messing around with that company's network. Like, let me test and see how things
Wait,
work.
somebody's paying me to learn. Let's just do this. Like, let's just learn it before they find out.
Yeah, it's easier to hide things when you run everything. If something breaks, you're like, I don't know what happened. It's all good, man. You fix it real quick before anybody
now you can
sees
just
it.
point to AI. Well, that was the wrong prompt. So, but hey, human me, I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
But It's a very interesting background. So I think there's two kind of key points that I jotted down in my mind. One, don't piss David off. And, this is a voice experience, but, maybe we'll cut a video and we could show people your background with like all these, trophies and medals. And like, is that Bruce Lee behind the Cisco Press book where, like the big bubblehead or...
No, that's Two-Face, actually. I'm a little bit of a comic book nerd as well. So that's Harvey Dent and Two-Face.
Nice. Yeah. Power to that. But anyway, so first thing is, David is multi-talented, and when the talent is actually bare knuckle fighting, I don't care how bad you describe it was, but you're a professional. So hey, standing in the ring, man, that's a fear factor for me.
There's some videos of that on YouTube somewhere.
Oh, is that right?
If you search deep enough, you'll find them.
We don't even need to search, man. Go ahead, post them in the show notes, David. I'll be interested in looking at that.
Right. I'll look it up.
Nice. Please, like, if we forgot about it, please, ping me up, ping David. Make sure we include in the show notes because I'm impressed. And the second thing was, I think out of 100 plus, I mean, keep me honest, right, listeners, but I think out of 100 plus conversations, you're the first one whose dad was actually networking as well. I've heard of other being telecom, but if you're talking about like data center and like packets, I don't think I've heard anything else. So it's kind of interesting you made that circle back into it, right? Like you said, you always gravitated, and how much of that I wonder was just nurture, right? And maybe not nature, but like nurture, like nature. So that's kind of interesting to me. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about like your role right now, because just before I pressed the record button, we talked about like your role change, and due to I don't know if you live under a rock like AI, right? So tell us a little bit of that transition, just maybe from DevOps to whatever this thing we have right now.
Yeah, so I recently transitioned to the principal architect for NetDevOps for our modern networks practice at Presidio,
right?
Which entails a lot of different areas. So it, everything from go-to-market strategy to interactions with customers, helping design out strategies to help customers build out their engineering. So I work with a high level of, VP director level people at Presidio, all the way down to delivery engineers and how they do it. And when you're across that span of so many different areas within the company, you get to see a lot. And one of the things we see a lot of with our customers is they start talking about a lot more about AI and agentic ops and things. And, with, I'm sure every company right now is kind of trying to figure out, how does that fit into our, modernization strategy? Where do we put that? Does it fall to our infrastructure team under the server management? Is it does a security team have to manage pieces of it? Is it the network team that's going to be doing it? Regardless of who's using it, I feel like there's a lot of cross-pollination with all of those teams when we talk about AI and things. And, with every other company out there, Presidio has the same stances where they're trying to figure out, where does it sit? And, one of the things that, within my roles, I'm trying to define, what pieces of that, that the modern networks, should be in control of, which pieces of that we kind of fall to me to kind of help architect, design, and put out best practices for. So, and that falls, I really leaned on automation when I was kind of figuring out, like, how do we architect, NetDevOps with agentic ops within a network. So I took traditional NetDevOps architectures where you have, the presentation layer at the top, and you have sources of truth. You have all the automation engines and everything kind of connected, orchestration, how they all flow together, and just saying that this workflow really describes more than just automation. It also describes a lot of the agentic flows out there. So it kind of fit right in there. So it's one of the things I kind of attached to. I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a NetDevOps thing where we can take it, because a lot of these things that people want to do, I think they would be more deterministic and better served if we used automation in the back end when using AI ops, instead of just having AI agents kind of communicate directly to devices and try to configure them on their own. Because, without determinism, you might get 2 or 3 different answers from, an LLM on how to do something, which is fine if I'm writing an email, I don't care if it writes the same email 3 different ways. It's okay. But if I'm doing something in my network that I need configured a specific way to specific standards, I want it done the same way every time. And the best way I know how to do that is through best practices through automation. So I'm going to put some sort of automated orchestrator in the back end that I want to give my LLM access to call tools from, maybe through an MCP directly to that orchestrator tool, to then call those automations to actually make those things happen. So that's been kind of taking over, a lot of the conversations I've had lately with customers who it starts off with NetDevOps. They want to talk about, how do we get started? And then inevitably somebody brings up AI and we get down a rabbit hole.
I think you're already several steps ahead of, that whole cycle, right? Because I think maybe we should pull back a little bit and we'll do this role play thing on, hey, I am a customer. We get on the NetDevOps, just so that we could take through that journey. Because the first thing that we should probably clarify is, what is the difference? I'm sure everybody has been through like a chat interface, right? Like a chat GPT, maybe that's Gemini, maybe that's Claude, whatever it is, but it's a chat box. And then I start chatting with it through text, or nowadays, even through voice, right? So I chat through them. But how is that different than, agentic that you talked about? Because I think that is a very crucial difference. And we should probably, just bridge that gap just in case like some listeners have, needed that bridge. So what is it?
Yeah. So the way I break it down, I try to keep it really high level when I talk about difference. So like in a chatbot, you're giving an input and getting information back.
Right.
Whether it's through it has access to the internet and it's pulling data down for you, or it's been trained privately on some of your data. It's going to, like, okay, what is a ASA firewall? And it'll spit back to me, this is the definition of an ASA. It'll give me a bunch of records. It'll ask me what I want to do next. It's a smart chat. It's not really doing anything else, but just kind of giving me back information. That's what I see with like LLM chats. They're not really doing anything. When you get into something that's agentic, agents have the ability to do work, and that's how I differentiate the two. So an agent, think of it as if I ask, if I'm in a chat with an agent and I ask it, I need to create an application. It doesn't just spit back a bunch of code back at me that I have to then go paste into something and figure out how to make it work. It'll actually build the folder structure for me. It'll have access to do that work in the back end. It'll create folder structure. It'll create the files. It'll install dependencies for me. It actually gets work done. And that's the, I think, the main difference between, a AI chatting with these chatbots you have and agentic, where you're actually getting actual work done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to augment that. I mean, 100%, right? But I also want to augment that as being, in the chat interface, if you just imagine talking to your friend and there's only so much that you could do, and you have to put the context in your brain and yourself. So essentially, I'll say previously, right before the agentic, I was just putting into the chat and say, hey, I want to configure BGP. Here's, like AES, whatever, and this is an iOS XE box. And then, here's my ASN, here's my neighbor, here's all the commands. Like, here's what I want to do. And then it spits out and I copy and paste back, right? Or in the terms of Python, I want to run a function. Here's my return value. And, you figure out the messy middle. However, in an agentic, because like you said, they could do work and they usually have a broader context. So for example, they will look at, you could express your intent. And then they will look at, okay, here's some guardrails on your company's profile. Here's like previous 5 different configurations that you have. So then, the 6th one that I'll come up and for you, and that becomes a game changer for me that, in terms of writing code and in terms of, getting things done, because they have so much more context, and that context could often include guardrails and so on. So 100% what you said, and I totally agree. And then I'll just kind of add that they have so much more context, and the context should be provided by you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, because that brings up the idea of system prompts versus prompting within a chat where you're asking a simple question. Or within an agent, you would have a system prompt which can provide guardrails, the rules, and the context that you're speaking of. So within that it can be anywhere from a paragraph to 6 pages of a system prompt that gives these very specific. I want this agent to only do this, and I want it to do it this exact way. And it helps a little bit with that deterministic abilities that agents can have over just a basic chat.
Yeah, totally. And also there's like hidden different platform have different things, right? So, you may have some sort of hidden files within, a cursor that guards your overall global parameters, right? Like, I don't want to use pip. I want to use, whatever poetry for package management, right? So you set that guardrail at the top level, then you don't have to ever worry about like that your agent go manage your package other than poetry. Or, you could specify the project level. So, and then so on top of that, like you said, they have prompts. So I think you mentioned a very critical point about predictability. So predictability breeds trust and reliability. It breeds reliability, then it breeds trust. So if without trust, you really can, just have these wild agents or scripts. Like imagine if you wrote a script and anybody could execute, right? Like anybody and would just like start typing in commands or whatever. So that's not very helpful, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I, just through our conversation, this is totally off the script, but I want to do this role playing thing, right? Because you mentioned, how the conversation where it starts with NetDevOps. I'm a customer, like logging on a call. So why don't I play the role of like a normal conversation? And I am a traditional network engineer, and I've always wanted to do automation, and now that I have this AI thing, so I got on a call, and I'm a potential customer. So why don't you be the senior engineer that explains all of these steps to me, and plus your own opinion, right? Because I want to hear your thoughts. So let's do this. You're up for it?
Yeah, let's give it a try.
All right, cool, man. So hey, David, I heard so much about NetDevOps, but it's just a buzzword for me. Can you break down what NetDevOps is, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I'm first of all asking how much experience do you have with NetDevOps? And you say it's like a buzzword, but do you actually have an opinion on like what it is yourself, or is it just like this obscure notion of doing things by themselves? Where
Oh
are you
man,
at?
I read it on the in-flight magazine and of a Delta flight from like I don't know Phoenix to New York, and I'm all for it. But I don't know anything about it, right? Like I'm traditional network engineer. I've gone through my career path by learning more and more about technology and going through vendor certs, right? So I am at a CCIE level, which man, I tell you what, it's been like a couple of years studying, and now you're telling me these are they useless, or or do I still retain those knowledge and be an expert in my field in this new DevOps world?
No, I mean, all that knowledge that you've accrued over the years is still there in NetDevOps. I mean, NetDevOps, the foundation of NetDevOps is networking. It's in the name. That's where it all starts. And a lot of guys are like, you probably spend a lot of time in the CLI, planning out configs, writing configs up. Maybe you have like templates that you write up in Notepad or whatever your flavor is that you write out your configs in, you paste them into the devices.
Oh, you're selling me short. I use Notepad plus plus.
Oh,
not
nice.
just Notepad.
I used to use that myself a lot before I discovered more powerful, IDEs and things. But yeah,
Right.
that's where we all kind of started.
Mm-hmm.
But the transition from NetDevOps, from traditional networking to NetDevOps isn't that far off from what you're doing now. As a CLI engineer, doing things the manual way, you still have that. You don't realize that you have that developer kind of mindset already. I mean, if you look at a config and you're building a initial config on a router or a switch, like from scratch, you have to plan it out. You can't just, start dumping in commands and this is going to go in here, that's going to go in there. You start by at the very base configuration. I got to give it a host name. I got to give it this. I got to do AAA. You're not going to do AAA before you give it a host name or before you got to set up your SSH key, and like certain things have to go in a certain order or the config doesn't go in right. You got to go in conf team mode before you go into an interface, and like these are all things that you understand and how these steps work, and that's similar to this NetDevOps process. This is our that flow of this goes first, then I have to do this, then I have to do that. I mean, that's how programming in general works. You have to understand the flow, and you already understand how structured data kind of works without even thinking about it. Because you look at a CLI, an output of a device, it's kind of written in a flat file, but it's also a little bit of a structured data that you can kind of relate to other things like like you hear buzzwords like YAML and JSON when you're talking about that. So that config that's flat there has levels of your exec level. Then you have your config level, then your interface level. They kind of step in. And a lot of times there's like indentations in the file that you can see those steps. And that's the exact same way that structured data is kind of built out in like a YAML file. If you're trying to like figure that out, it's just indentations the exact same way. Interface under this config's a part of the interface, the same way you would relate that when you're writing config. So you have that mindset that's already there. And the big difference is you're now, instead of going into a command line, doing things, like manually, you're taking all of your knowledge and you're applying this NetDevOps mindset to it, where it's now repeatable, it's stable, you have less risk, and it's one of my favorite things is you can undo it a lot easier as well. So you can roll back faster, which also interjects a lot less risk. And then and because you can do it in a structured way that's repeatable, you can now then have testing that happens in the middle there that gives it that validation that you're doing things right. So you're not just, let me try this command. Is it going to break? Is it not going to break? I'm not just going to take my whole config file that I wrote out, spend an hour writing a template out and dump it into my switch and then look for errors. Now I can test that first. Hey, is this config written out right? And then dump it in. It's the same process that you're already doing. So that knowledge is crucial to building out the automation. So you're there. It's just learning a different language. So you're already, so instead of writing out CLI, you're writing it out in a YAML file for a playbook. It's just this is a slightly different kind of pattern that you're doing. But you're like a lot of these CLI guys, they think they can't get there. They can't build automations because they don't know programming, but they forget that they've been in that programming mindset almost their entire career, because that's how network devices are kind of built and designed.
Yeah, that's very calming, and a few, right? Like my skill set and the years of spent, learning networking foundations and technologies not useless at this point. You've had me at you've had me at rollback, right? Because my rollback used to be reload intent and just twiddling in my thumb and like remember to take off that command, right? So it's really awesome. And you mentioned several tools that could help me get there. And what are some of those tools that because I think there's got to be new things that you introduce for testing, programming, or even just that indentation that help me visualize it, right? So what are some of the tools for let's just say it's a starter toolkit for NetDevOps? What would you include in that toolbox? Hello, let's talk about something every network engineer and IT leader knows too well: battling complexity, tight resources, and a mismatch of tools from different vendors. When your team is already stretched thin, every new network hiccup can turn into a time-consuming chase across dashboards and support channels. Instead, imagine having all your wired, wireless, and cellular networking taken care of. Performance, visibility, security, without all that fragmentation. That's what Meter delivers. They handle everything, end-to-end, from hardware design and software, deployments, to ongoing support. One simple, powerful solution instead of juggling a dozen tools. Meter gives you deep control and visibility, but without the complexity, freeing your team up to focus on what matters, and making you that much more effective as a leader and problem solver. Thanks for Meter for sponsoring. Go to meter.com/NAN to book a demo now. That's meter.com/NAN to book a demo. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, so for that, I almost wouldn't call it a toolbox because there's a lot more that goes into it than tools. I mean, one of the first things is a NetDevOps mindset and how you're going to be doing things. And so I guess the first, piece of that, the first layer is your foundation layer that would be in your toolkit. And that's going to be things like understanding central responsibility for the automations things that you're doing. So understanding that you're no longer doing things in a silo. You're not the only one doing it. Other people need to be able to run your code as well. So adopting something like Git and being able to that gives you the ability to do version controlling, have all your code in a centralized place so everybody can see it and share it, and then they can run it as well. So that's number one. It's like getting that mindset ready where I have to be whatever my knowledge that is. It can be scary too because it's like this is the knowledge that is that a lot of engineers are like this is my job security. I'm the one who knows how to do this one thing. I have so many hero moments in the network where I was like, I know how to fix that, right? And I go do it. And this is kind of taking that away. You're not gonna you remove yourself from those hero moments and you spread that knowledge to your entire team. So you build your automation around that specific knowledge that you are holding and share it amongst everybody else. So getting that mindset with Git in place and then understanding. So the next piece would be understanding structured data. So you have a start with understanding how CLI configs are kind of built and structured, but then applying that to data structures like JSON objects, YAML, XML. Those are very common frameworks that you're going to see in automation. So just getting familiar with what they look like and how to extract that data that you want. So those are like the main pieces. Then you want to once you have that mindset and you have like some understanding under your belt, then you want to start getting into maybe Ansible's like the first thing you kind of dip your toes into. It's a very easy tool to get yourself started with because it's not a programming language you're writing in. Again, you're writing in YAML, which is again just kind of a structured data format that you can take a lot of pre-built automations that Ansible already has curated and the community's already curated for you, and then plug them in little modules and let them run for you. So that gives you a quick start kind of into some easy wins on automation. So that's that foundation layer. Then you get into, all right, now I'm going to start, you can get into more advanced things like how to start actually automating things, pushing out config changes maybe, doing that through structured data. So now maybe you're storing your configurations in that Git repository, making changes there, and then they get validated and pushed out, starting with, simple bases. First, the first couple of things, maybe it isn't a config change. I see that a lot. I think even the network automation forum, they did a survey, and most of the companies out there, they're starting with configuration changes as like one of the first things. And a lot of times I would recommend here is, let's start with something like visibility. Let's get access to data, because data has value. Right? You can extract data from something and then act on it. You can get a lot more value out of that. So something as simple as backups, doing diff configurations, that can lead to compliance checking. So those are some easy wins, that you can get within that kit. So you have your foundation layer of, how I'm going to collaborate. Then you get into the tools and how you're going to do it. And then that last piece of that foundation, that toolkit, is more of a, how to speak to management and sell your automation internally to your company. It's a very important part of this, because if you can't show the value in what you're doing, it's going to die, right? You have to be able to translate automation wins into a kind of business strategy win, strategic win. How is this saving the company money? How is this improving the company overall? I ran into my past, where I was trying to get an automation team together, get it pushed up. And one of the first roadblocks I hit was I wasn't able to explain to the upper management why it was valuable. And the biggest thing I came up with was I could do my job faster so I could do other things. And they're like, that's good for you. You should already be doing your job faster. Great. That's awesome. Do it better anyway.
Right.
They weren't willing to invest, millions of dollars into buying all this equipment to make everybody do things faster. They wanted to see how's this going to help the company. Translate that not knowledge.
Let me break out a character, because I think we're and double click on that point, because I think that's a very important point. Is that a lot of times the network engineer, like you said, right? Like, we do this, we learn Python, Ansible, whatever, so that I could go home at 5, right? Like, as I don't have to pull overtime, I could attend my kid's soccer game. But when you zoom out and take your network engineer hat off and put your manager's hat on, or whoever, right? Like CEO's hat on, that it's great that you go. But I could without spending so much money, I could hire another person, and then this total workload would be reduced. But that's only a fraction of that cost. So just because you reduce the current workload of one single engineer, may or may not be justifiable for them to do whatever training automation tools. So I think that's a very important point that you just clicked on. So, but the following up question would be, which one comes first? Like, I am just a very handful of engineer with a small team managing large networks. Like, that's an old story, and I want to get started. So do you recommend learning about the business value first, or do you do like a small trial? You mentioned mindsets. How do I get started?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is getting the team in the mindset first.
Okay.
You have to understanding automation and the tooling and what it can do. Once you understand that, then you can then you can learn it and translate that to business, which is harder to do, like for a lot of engineers, because we're not seeing day to day. We're not in the boardroom. We're not talking to VP. A lot of us aren't talking to VPs every day, understand what's happening in the business, and so I think it's important to, as an engineer, after you've got that, because we're all technical, we learn that automation, we can do that piece. So once we have that down and we understand what it can do, then go out to your company website,
look at the mission statement.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people never actually go to their company's website and just kind of look at what the company is about, what their mission statement is, what their priorities and goals are.
Right.
There's a lot of things that a network engineer doesn't see because they're all the way at the bottom of the stack, holding up the foundation. But, up at layer 7, you've got, applications running that support the business that you are supporting. So if you can translate, uptime that you're saving by reducing risk with your automation to uptime on applications that customers are using, that's a business win. right?
Right.
And then a VP can see the value in that, where they're
Right.
not going to say, "Hey, I got my change done 2 hours faster than usual."
Right.
It-
Then it's like good for you.
Yeah.
Fears on me, but like,
Right.
yeah. So I think that's a great way. 100% go look at your company's top level. But if we scale back a little bit, just on the personal level, every single company I've been to, we do annual reviews, right? And sometimes quarterly reviews. And in the quarterly review, you have to list out the 5 things that you want to get better at. And those actually corresponds. And because those are done with your manager, and your manager is, kind of trickle down, right? So your company's mission statement gets broken down into operations, engineering, sales, marketing, whatever it is. And then eventually it trickles down to you. So those kind of correlates back. So that would be a great starting point, just to correlate whatever you're doing right now into the goal. And then you tie those automation, and not just, like you said, not just because I finished my maintenance window, 2 hours faster, but rather the company's website loads 0.05% faster, right? And that actually translates into higher customer satisfaction. And if you do happen to bump into CEO in the elevator, right? You're like, hey, if we have like 2,000 visits per day, and if everybody loads 0.05 seconds faster, that correlates to whatever time and whatever hours that I save, and all of that, right? So I think just in that simple example, we could just already kind of squint really closely and say, oh, that's a business value. And that actually correlates to, maybe a longer lifespan of hardware, and that's thousands of dollars. So let's talk about that bonus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point too. I remember those reviews. I don't have the same kind of structure with those type of reviews anymore. Sure. But when I did have those, there always was I'd have like 10 goals.
Right.
And they were like, these top 5 goals are
right. Here's your stretch goal. Here's your mandatory goal.
Yeah.
And
These ones are all mandatory. They're being passed down from the business. These are goals we have to hit as far as M&A mergers, supporting SAP upgrades. Like these are things that they decided on were priority. And then they gave us like 5 personal goals. Thinking back, like things that I didn't do, I should have done better was, looking at those top business goals that they're giving me. It's laid out right there, like what's valuable to the company, and what can I do in my role to support those through automation to show my value better to the upper management, because that's what they're going to see. Like you can put a bunch of your own personal goals in there. That might help you with a raise or a small promotion within your team. But if you want to scale outside of your team and then build on automation and show your value to the company, you have to address those business needs. And that's a great point on looking at those type of reviews. I mean, it's been a while since I've had them, so I've kind of forgotten about them. But that's a great point that those are already laid out for you by your management, and you should take advantage of that and kind of try to correlate your work into those.
Right, and then you see your manager's eyes light up until, wow, this dude speaks my own language. And so I also want to say that is, in this day of age, we all heard about the layoffs. We all heard about like these, keep up with the times, right? So that's your career. That's your career advancement there, by just acquiring the goals of looking at the overall trend, not just your companies, and raise your head from the cubicle a little bit and look at the overall trend. And we'll get into AI, but look at overall trend, look at where the industry is going, and then translate that into your specific skill sets and next step. I believe that will serve you so much better than just learning the next, OS upgrade procedure, right? I think those time spent are compounds, and just to know, the earlier you are, it's never too late. But the earlier that you do it, the more that's going to compound, right? If you do it in your 20s, or if you do it in your early 30s, then those skills compound each other, and you reap the benefit, toward the back end of your career as well. So it's never wasted. Another thing, I'm, not to like hop on the point too much, but I do think it's an important point. It's that if you look at the videos that were recently released by Autocon 4, they actually implement a new track called the leadership track, which actually translates the business use cases and the value that they bring from network engineering, just the nuts and bolts into, and it was really well received. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, or have you kind of dive into some of the videos?
I've dived into some of them. I've not seen that one yet. But
Okay.
that does sound awesome. I think it's great that it's actually getting out there now, because it's those things that I wish, back when I was getting started, that I did more.
Yeah.
Thinking back when I first started in engineering, I didn't think of myself as being anywhere near management. I thought of myself, I'm going to be a tech. I like techie stuff. I'm probably going to be a tech forever. And throughout my career, a couple of times I was presented management opportunities that I turned down because I wanted to stay technical. I wanted to be there. But now, where I am in my career now, I'm still technical, but I'm working with upper management, VP level, people that I have to be able to speak that kind of business language. And it's more of a struggle for me now because I didn't take the time early on to kind of foreshadow that I might need those skills moving forward. I never thought I would be here. So don't take for granted, what you have now. If you have the opportunity, now you're young in your career, even if you hate it, go through that, look up that business piece of it and try to correlate it. Sit down with your manager, maybe sit down with your manager, have an honest, open conversation. Hey, can you help me correlate what I do to the business? If you don't understand it, they should be able to help you with that. That's their job, to help you move forward in your career. So, ask them, what can I be doing better to align with the company? Not just what can I be doing better in my job? What can I do better to advance myself here? Those types of questions come align yourself with the business needs and the business outcomes that you want to see. And that'll serve you in the long run. Even if you don't want to apply, you're not able to apply it right then, but you get in that mindset. So when you're in that position, you can apply it, and then it serves you really well.
Yeah, I want to just double click on that as well. Just the amount of time that you spend is never wasted on anything, right? It might be just, even if you do woodworking, or you, right? You were a martial artist. I won't say that. And it still taught you discipline, taught you hardworking and all of that, right? And so everything you learned, and this is something I told my daughters, that everything you learned will go back to you, right? Nobody could take that away. But there's certain skill sets that are more directly related to your career, like financial management or speaking in terms of, profits and losses. So those could be directly translated into to your career well. And I would classify what we talked about as being closer to, your this capitalist society that we live in, right? Versus, discipline, teamwork, which are still valuable, but they may not be, one-to-one translated well into that. But this is really worth, digging into. And we'll put the link in the show notes, even the keynotes, right? Jeff's keynotes on, how to win a deal, that directly, and he went through the wins and losses and lessons learned. So that will give you a taste of what it is. And I listened through it. I think it's useful. So we'll put that in the show notes. So that's great, David. I really enjoyed that piece of advice. Anything else that you want to bring up? Let's just say, I went through it and, I'm getting pretty good at it. What would be the next step on to just getting into NetDevOps practices?
I guess it's back to understanding the difference between what I think of automation and what I think of is NetDevOps.
Okay.
Within automation, I think there's levels of things you're doing, whether it's I'm doing automating tasks, I'm automating my different pieces of my job, easy wins. And I see NetDevOps as a shift in mentality and how you actually operate your entire network as a system and no longer a group of individual devices. So I'm no longer I'm going to go run a script or kick off an Ansible playbook to update my firewalls. Everything's kind of either is in an orchestration system like Ansible Automation Platform, where you can configure across your entire domain, or it's in a GitLab or Git repository where you can run a CI/CD pipeline to run infrastructure as code against your entire domain. It's no longer scripts and individual automations that are being run. It's an entire ecosystem that's being managed, and you're doing it through structured data, validation, testing, rollback schedules, then repeating that through. So nothing in your network should be unexpected. Nothing's a snowflake. Everything is predictable.
Yeah. So in your opinion, I mean, I think I've seen, in a consulting role as well, I've seen, various timelines. But in your opinion, if you were to put a time horizon on these, right? How long does it take for a mid-range engineer to learn about the business cases? How long does it take to learn Ansible? How long does it take to do config backups and CI/CD pipeline infrastructure as code? All of these, right? Like, if you were to put a timeline on it, how would you give advice on people who are just starting out and say, I want to do this?
I would say it happens a lot faster than they would think.
Okay.
And understanding automation, Ansible, those things. I mean, you could be up and running with your first Ansible playbook in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Get it in, have a pull backup of a switch. So that's the easy part. That's the technology where we understand. Like, I think we can get there really quickly on the technology piece of it. And then it's how do I do that at scale? If I can do it myself, then it's the learning curve of doing it at scale with a team in place where I have to convince everybody else on my team to do it the same way I am. There's that mentality shift of we're not going to connect into these devices. I know you love logging into this router. It's super easy. You can do it in 2 seconds.
Especially at 2 a.m. in the morning. I love logging into it and just do a show run.
Right. It's super easy to do. But if we did it this way, you're going to have more consistency, less risk, and you're not going to have to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning because you're going to have this automation is going to run and do it for you. But you got to put the work in up front. So then to get the entire team up together can take anywhere from, depending on how willing your team is to work with you, can be like 6 months to a year to get a full team, a large team together to be on the same page. I mean, I've seen it done really quickly where the engineers were like, yeah, we're in, let's do it. And like within like a month, everybody was using Git instead of logging into network devices. But that's rare.
So what's the difference though? So I'm sorry to cut you off, but because you just piqued my interest there. You've seen teams that have done within a week. And if you look at that team and overlay it with the other teams who's taken 6 months or a year to do it, what is the biggest difference or differences of that team?
I would say a strong champion or a leader either within the team or leading that team. So either a strong presence within the team that champions it and can convincingly convince the other team members, like, this is the way we're going to do this now, and convince them it's the right way to do it. So having that internal champion really accelerates everything because they're trusted. Where if I come in as an outside consultant to say, you should be doing NetDevOps, and they're like, I don't know about that. I don't know how to do Python. I don't know about this. And then I have to kind of convince them and go through my steps where I slowly convince them that this is the right way to do it. I go through demos and I built some automations for them and show them how easy it is. Like, but that takes time. Where if they have an internal champion who's like already coaching them on this is how we should do it, but I need some guidance on how to do it. And when I come into that situation, the transition's a lot faster because their mindset is there. They're ready to take on the new task and move on to getting to the right direction of NetDevOps.
Got it. And to get that champion, if one doesn't already exist, that is when you get that business case and value proposition and getting that champion on your side on that infamous lunch that we talked about, right?
Yeah.
then that's how you get your champion, the senior leader, maybe a couple skip levels, and then you could trickle it down.
It's easier to convince senior leadership that NetDevOps is needed coming from a consulting point of view because I have the use cases, I have the business cases, so I can speak to it better after coming from the outside to tell that person. But then they have to convey it in a way that then they can then trickle down and then put it in a positive way to the teams that they should be doing it this way and not we're doing this now sort of thing,
Right. That's a great segue into, kind of what's been the conversation with AI, right? So how do you kind of look at positively on AI, in a day of age where, a lot of these layoffs were attributed to AI or, a lot of these uncertainties and this cluster Fs that, we don't really know. Like that's attributed to that, right? So how do you, first question is, how do you interpret that? And the second is, how do you get started? So I'll leave that to you, David.
Yeah. So with AI, what's good, like good in the industry with AI? I mean, it's really enabled a lot of people to do more than they can. It's I think the negative pieces of it come from people viewing AI, as you said, as like a either replacement or they're not seeing it for really what it is. And the way I view AI is right now is an accelerator.
Okay.
It's a human accelerator. So engineers are still needed. You still have to have somebody there, that human presence to understand the network. All your years of CCIE knowledge and intuition is there. And that intuition on how to do things right, the best way to do it, can only be imparted so much into an LLM. They can think and regurgitate, but they're not creative. They can't, problem solve the way a human can. So that human interaction to understand what's safe, what's not safe, what's the best practices, what's a real best practices in our environment. Like when you're intuiting these things, like the human piece has to be there, and that human then needs to use AI to accelerate their thought process. So I have this awesome idea on how this should be done. I'm going to let AI support me in that path and not resist it. And a lot of that, I've said it a few times and other people repeated it. It's, AI isn't going to take your job. A good engineer who knows how to use AI will take your job. So you kind of have to embrace, at this point in time, before they ban AI everywhere when it does something crazy and comes to life or whatever. At this point in time, you kind of have to embrace AI for what it is, as that accelerator to help you do your job better. Because other people are. And so if you're not, you're going to fall behind. That's my advice to right now to the industry. Keep your head up, because it's evolving fast. Things go from day to day, and there's a lot of amazing things that are happening besides chatbots. The agentic frameworks, the skills that are coming out every single day. MCP servers, different frameworks. Every day it changes. Every day I log in, LinkedIn, on websites, there's a new innovation out there. I mean, I can't keep up with John Capibianco's posts, because he's posted some new innovation he come up with every single day. I'm like,
it's the next best thing. And then it's like the next week, there's another best thing. So
forget what I said yesterday. John, I just improved it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Version 2. And now it's like, I didn't even get to version 1. So what do you mean version 3.5?
Yeah, I'm not even finished reading his first post. He's got a second one out. We've improved it already. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, but we love John, and
I love John.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and can't say no good things about him. So how do you get started in AI?
You gotta. I think you just dive in. Find like start off with the chatbots that are out there. Look, like you go with ChatGPT, your Claude, you kind of just play with them a little bit and see how the chats work. Figure out how what you say, how your prompts into the chat can change what the output of the chat is. So you have to kind of like figure out how to talk to it properly. Otherwise, you start ending up with a confirmation bias, the same as you do on the internet, and you get kind of steered in one direction. AI does the same thing. If you steer it in a direction, it's going to keep steering you in that same direction instead of giving you back what you want. So try to leave your opinions out of it. Then, get comfortable with chatting with AI. Get on some agent platforms that are out there. There's tons of free platforms that you can get onto. Top of mind is Cursor. It's an amazing platform integrated into your IDE. So it's an amazing IDE built off of VS Code. So if you're familiar with VS Code, you're familiar with the Cursor interface. So you've got your text pane in the middle. You've got folder structures on the side. You can open up terminals. You can SSH into devices. It's got a ton of tools built into it. But then with Cursor, and even other IDEs have some built-in agents as well. But with Cursor, it was one of the first ones to come out with this built-in chat interface with agentic abilities in it. So I could ask it, build me this application, or build me set up Ansible for me and build me a playbook to do this. it can go out, install Ansible on your machine, build the playbooks for you, put them in the right folder structure, and then run the playbook for you. Then you can chat to it about it. Hey, what did you do? Why did you do it this way? And then it's no easy way to say, keep up because it's hard. But with getting started with AI, it's just using it, get involved with the different agent platforms. And then after you're comfortable, it's just research. Get on, listen to awesome podcasts like Network Automation Nerds. They talk about agentic stuff all the time. There's tons of posts on LinkedIn every day. I see a new post on some new innovation with AI. So just get out there, read, see what's out there. But just dive in. There's so much out there. Like you can't go wrong starting anywhere with AI. If you've never heard of it, you've been living under a rock, like Eric said, and you've never heard of AI, crawl out, download ChatGPT and start playing with it. Just do it on a browser. Just start chatting with you. See how amazing it is. I remember when it first came out, I was just telling it to write me songs in the voice of Eminem. And I used it when I went camping with my kids to write me a ghost story, and I read a ghost story to my kids around a campfire.
And then combine the two. You're like, his palms are sweating, his knees are, and then there's this
exactly.
And then this ghost that appeared. I 100%. I will include notes for Cursor if you're not familiar with it in the notes, and I would give Cursor props as well. I think I pick Cursor over, say some of the other tools. I won't name them, but over some of the other tools, because Cursor by default, when they came out of the agentic mode, they actually give you reasoning by default in the background. So you'll say, hey, turn on agent mode, and I say, hey, write me this BGP config, right? So then by default, it will hide this reasoning, but it will write out and say, the person wants to know about BGP configuration, and I'm doing these analysis, I'm going around query. And so like all these reasoning, by default, it won't show you, but if you do the drop down, you will see. And back to what you were talking about, David, on trust and reliability, then it give me more trust on this reasoning, and then I could go correct it. Go, no, that's not the documentation you should be looking at. You should be using my local documentation because that's our standard, and so on and so forth. So yeah, we'll include in the show notes. I love the fact that you talked about just go and try it, just be curious, get started, and then make your own decision, right? Like optionality. That's the LinkedIn. That's a LinkedIn post I posted today. Is that mastery equals optionality? Once you master both, you have the option to use it or not. But if you don't know, then you don't know. You can't use a tool that you have no idea about. So I love that. And one last question is, what is, I don't know, man. Like, what is the most overrated tool right now in your mind?
Overrated tool.
Yeah.
That's tough. Okay. But I without dropping specific names, I would say any tool really that sells this idea of being able to do automation right out of the box without first getting that mindset in place.
Okay.
So I see a lot of times teams, they'll start with a tool because I think that's the answer to their problem. But when the real problem was people process first, then technology. So you start with the people, you figure out your processes, and then you apply the right tools to that. So if you start with a tool first that says it'll do everything for you, then you end up trying to steer your processes to work inside that tool instead of creating proper processes for your best practices and then getting the tools that fit it first.
Yeah. I like that. So if somebody's trying to sell you a snake oil / network engineering tool, that's going to cure everything, right? It's just give us a bucket of money. Yeah, and we'll give you this oil that you just rub on your router and it will just magically upgrade itself when needed. Yeah. Then that's fine. Not going to work.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah, I know we could probably just chat forever, a couple of hours, down the road, and we'll like look up and go, oh wow, where did the time go? But we do have to wrap up at some point. Let me ask you, David, so where can people find you if they want to follow your work, they want to learn more about what's at maybe Presidio, maybe your own career path, they want to reach out and ask about how to switch on martial artists, to network engineering. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn pretty regularly. I took a little break right after the new year, but I'm going to be hopping back in and posting more. Try to get on and post a couple times a week to at least. So you can catch me on LinkedIn. I also I blog every now and again, not as much as I should. I have a small blog that I update a couple times a year. It's networkdoodles.com.
Awesome. And obviously we'll have those in the show notes. If you're, on your mobile or whatever, you could just hop on over. If you're just listening in the car, please drive safely. But then once you're in front of a computer or whatnot, then click on this link, check out, connect with David on LinkedIn, check out his blog. And thank you so much, David, for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This was fantastic.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Network Automation Nerds. Do you have any feedback for Network Automation, our guest David today, or this episode? Send us some follow-ups at packetpushers.net/follow-up. We do want to hear from you. And please check out our website at packetpushers.net to find other network engineering-focused newsletters, blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, I really appreciate it if you could take a moment to leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Your review helps other network engineers discover the show and keep us motivated to bring you more great content like this one. We thank you, the wonderful listeners, for your support. Last but not least, remember that too much network automation will never be enough.